Good evening, everybody, and welcome to AAPI Power, a special event with Asia, Ohio. My name is Simon Tam. I'm the founder of The Slants, an Asian American dance rock band, and the Slants Foundation, a nonprofit that's based here in Ohio. We're a national org that works with artists to provide activism for their work to create real systemic changes. And tonight, we're really talking about the power of representation, particularly with our communities. Now, as somebody who's lived in multiple parts of the country, I've had the honor and privilege of being able to live in some states with a representation of AAPIs near the governor's level in state offices. So oftentimes it's a Commission of Asian Affairs or an Office of Asian Affairs. And I've been able to see the power of having representation at that level, of having folks advocate for our community's issues. And I've also been on the other side of the coin as well, of being in states where we don't necessarily have that sort of recognition and seat at the table. And let me tell you, it's so much better to have representation at the table. Having our voices heard, having people who understand the needs of the community, particularly those communities that are kind of located throughout the state, not just in these urban centers. And as somebody who now lives in Cincinnati, Ohio, as a resident of the Midwest, I understand more often than not how our communities deserve that seat at the table. We need to have access to power because so oftentimes we're overlooked. And when people think of Asian Americans organizing, they tend to think of the major coastal cities. But the reality is that there are many of us that live in between those areas who are doing important work, advocating for change, lifting up not only AAPI communities, but when we're doing the work, we're bringing a more equitable future for families and children, for all communities. So here with me tonight is Elaine So of Asia, Ohio, Asian Services in Action. And I'm so excited to be bringing her on because she's doing a lot of that important work on the ground, working with families, and particularly with immigrants and refugees, but also with Asian Americans just throughout the state of Ohio. And we're here to talk about the importance of that work and also to talk about how you can support that. So Elaine, welcome to AAPI Power, a special evening of arts and activism, where we'll be joined with many other artists, but let's dive in. First of all, can you tell us a little bit more about Asia, Ohio, the work that you're doing, and why it's important to have that kind of representation in our state?
Thanks so much, Simon, for that warm introduction. It's a very challenging time that we're living in. I mean, for the past year and a half, life has been challenging for everyone, but especially for the Asian community that has seen some specific actions given towards them in a negative way. We've seen community members who have businesses that have been no longer patronized because of the anti-Asian hostilities that have been directed towards the community. But it's also an opportunity to uplift some of the wonderful things that we're doing. It may surprise some people that the Asian community includes the community members from Afghanistan. We've been doing amazing work in terms of helping that community bring their family members over in the middle of that crisis in the Middle East.
And it seems like as the pandemic has been unfolding for the last couple of years, we've really been experiencing more than one type of pandemic. Certainly the COVID-19 crisis, which has been laying bare the inequities of our system, but also this pandemic of racism, of discrimination. And we've been seeing the rise in anti-Asian discrimination that you've mentioned, and also just to think about the displacement and lack of recognition for other communities like the Afghan refugees that you're mentioning as well. So tonight we're going to be talking more about these issues, why they're important, and how you can make a difference. But I really want to point folks to a website here, asiaohio.org/get involved. This is the best way that you can make your voice heard by choosing to volunteer, by donating to Asia Ohio, and understanding what causes that you can support in bringing more recognition for our communities. So let's go ahead and jump in. We have a special video here with a couple of representatives talking about the importance of advocacy in terms of having that office, that Commission of Asian Affairs in our state.
Hi, I'm State Representative Tavia Golansky, and I want to thank you for your interest in House Bill 224. If House Bill 224 becomes law, we will have Ohio's very first Asian American Pacific Islander Commission. And the commission, which will be funded, will have the goal of helping those members of the community who could benefit from the commission, either by research, personal assistance through social services, or by advocacy with regard to matters that are important in the community. I hope you'll consider joining me and Representative Stephanie House as we begin the long trail of implementing House Bill 224 as law. Thank you.
Greetings. I'm State Representative Stephanie House of Ohio's 11th House District. There are over 350,000 Asian and Pacific Island Ohioans who have the right to live the American dream right here at home with safety and security. That is why I've introduced legislation to create the Ohio Asian American and Pacific Islander Affairs Commission and the Office of Asian American and Pacific Islanders Affairs to address the injustices of the past and understand the unique difficulties in addressing the needs of our AAPI population here in Ohio. The primary responsibilities of this new commission would be to gather and disseminate information concerning Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, stimulate public awareness and advocacy of the Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders through education, coordinate and assist other public and private organizations that serve Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, advise the Governor, General Assembly, and state departments and agencies on the priorities of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, promote the delivery of state services across diverse communities, provide resources for culturally appropriate organizations and language services. It is our duty as elected officials to all do our part to support our AAPI communities by creating this commission and building unity in our state. Tuesday, September 28th is National Voter Registration Day, and I encourage you all to get registered and vote for elected officials who believe all Ohioans deserve to have their voices heard on the issues that impact them most.
Hi there, my name is Shamus Malik. I'm a city council member in Akron. I'm also an Asian American. I'm a Pakistani American. And I want to reach out to encourage you to support House Bill 224, which would create a state office and commission of Asian American and Pacific Islander affairs. And Ohio has a very large and diverse Asian American community. And it's really important that state government be able to engage and interact with that community in an ongoing and robust way. And so the Office and Commission would really help with that. It would allow us to make sure that state government documents and materials are available in different languages, and there are a lot of different languages in the Asian American community. It would also make sure that outreach by the government is culturally competent, so we're reaching folks where they are. It would also, make sure that we're keeping an eye on specific issues popping up in the Asian American community that might not be true for the broader community. So, for instance, the recent uptick in hate-based violence that has targeted East Asians in particular. And so for all of those reasons, a commission and an office would really be helpful in engaging the Asian American community in a robust and thoughtful way, and really would encourage you for that reason to support House Bill 224. Thank you.
So as you can see, it is so critical to have that kind of representation at all levels of our government. And if you want to continue to support the work that is being done, again, I would recommend checking out asiaohio.org/get involved. There you can learn how you can donate, how you can volunteer, how you can continue to support efforts to bring more of our elected officials that come from our communities who could bring forth really important causes like having an office or a commission of Asian affairs for the state of Ohio. So one of the other things that I'm really passionate about is not just civic engagement and turning those poles of power at the political offices, but using art to create real world change as well. So we have our first performer of the evening, Alan Z, a musician, actor, and songwriter based out of Atlanta, Georgia, with a performance. And then we're going to jump in with a conversation immediately after so you can learn more about his incredible work. But be sure to show some love. You can drop comments in on Facebook, on YouTube. Let folks know what you think about the performances and what you think about these issues. So in the meantime, please enjoy this performance from Alan Z.
Yeah, my name is Alan Z. Shout out to Asia, Ohio. Let's go. Liberation front, I'm on a militant tip. No exclusion that could ever make this immigrant dip. How you anti-Asian when it was a Chinese American that paved the way for birthright citizenship? Yeah, look how uncomfortable my heritage that made them. The first sex symbol in America was Asian. Says Ohio cowboy got the women hooked. Hollywood shook when they became their infatuation. You think COVID just a one-off fluke? Forgetting summer camps with nowhere to run off to. Traces a Japanese blood-eyed shoe. In a cage, separated families over that one drop brew. Even still, the enlisted instead of throwing the coop. Singled out by their lieutenants like this, who you supposed to shoot? Fighting in the white man's war to kill our own, and they still call those Asian American soldiers kooks. Even when the US loses in Vietnam, they made films acting like they're the heroes, like they had won. They tell you about bombing civilians at Okinawa, but nothing on Malcolm X and Yuri Kochiyama. Intentional erasures while you heard of Cesar Chavez, but not their labor strikes till it really unstarted. Or when you say American and don't think of me, if they omit it, gotta tell our own history.
Always wanted to be seen. Story of my life is a movie. Be a part of history, like the ones that came before me. Unity is what we need. Passion of the elders live through me. Be a part of history. That's the real American story.
The song right here is called Foreigner, based on the perpetual foreigner syndrome. Let's go.
When you look at me, what do you see? I can guarantee we not so different. Citizen, though you may not believe, cause you look at us like we just immigrants in the so-called land of the free. Ain't no 40 acres with no picket fence. Citizen, though you may not believe, why you look at us like we just immigrants? Everybody want a foreign, but nobody wanna be a foreigner.
Say foreigner, yeah.
Everybody want a foreign, but nobody wanna be a foreigner. Foreigner.
We came a long way from being immigrants, alien foreign, but they don't see us as real citizens. Swaying the morning tourists at best, intruders at worst. The way they perceive us, betrayed us on TV is weak, made us hate our own features. Anti-Asian propaganda on the back of pamphlets. Hit with a foreign or Hispanic store like Jackie Chan flicks. Model minority, that myth was fueled to have us gaslit, was also used to justify this country's anti-blackness. Victims of Orientalism, whether you're born into this system or migrated, stuck with the perpetual foreign Asian syndrome. They're like, where you from? Not like where you really from. Which one of your relatives did we go to war with in 1951? As a test of loyalty, they want us to diss our people for claps, but I'd rather take a knee to that than pledge allegiance, no cap. Anything that happens in Asia, they point at us even though we live here, been treating us like an illness way before COVID appeared. I'm saying
everybody want a foreign, but nobody wanna be a foreigner.
Say foreigner, yeah.
Everybody want a foreign, but nobody wanna be a foreigner.
Say foreigner, yeah.
Everybody want a
One more time.
Everybody wanna be a
Foreign, foreigner, yeah.
Everybody want a foreign,
But nobody wanna be a foreigner, yeah. This last song's called Beautiful, featuring Ruby Ibarra. From the jump to meet of lies, threatened by us, afraid of us winning. Started fake rumors pertaining to size, cause they were scared of us taking their women. Shame in our skin, shape of our eyes, breaking our prides and make us so different. Do you wanna demasculate us? Cause why? Fragility is the base of racism. Growing up I never had a role model with the same ethnic makeup as me. Foreigners, villains, and nerdies like kicks were the only roles I saw us play on TV. Ranked on the totem pole down at the bottom, but we're the fetish now K-pop is in. We just want to be accepted as human, seen for our character, not for our skin. Not to be measured by standards as Eurocentric, can't colonize what beauty means. Representing like I'm Serin Oh when you see me on your movie screens. This for the Asian kid bullied in middle school, ridicule on the school bus. Markets and copyists just like the fox, a trend. They hate us but wanna be us.
So you're that you're not beautiful, beautiful. Being like I just want you to know, want you to know. So you're that you're not beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, like I just want you to know, want you to know.
Thank you again to Asia, Ohio, and to the Slants Foundation. Appreciate you having me. My name is Alan Z. Peace.
Model minorities, not a portrait, it's an Asian caricature. To lump us together is parody work. Before you call us wealthy, let's talk about our income disparity first. So I ain't claiming that we're white adjacent. The whiter races, they Ching Chong, spend the eyes of Asians. Bamboo stealing, blocking high positions, higher wages. They hired us centuries ago for only migrant labor. My God, they hate us from the Chinese Exclusion Act to the Hart Seller Act. But they let us in to be pawns as part of the trap. Silence our issues like it's in the past. We ain't got no political power or media coverage. Where's the privilege in that, huh?
If you only knew, walk a mile in my shoes. If you only know, we're not so different from you.
Alan Z, welcome to AAPI Power.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Hey, so thank you so much for that. You shared with us. I know you shared a couple of tracks there from Face Value, a project that we've been working on through the Slants Foundation with you and Jason Chu. I'm wondering if you could share with folks a bit more about the album. What does it mean to you, and like how did you guys come up with the concept?
Yeah, so Face Value, it's a special album that me and Jason Chu created this year. So it was based around Asian American history. And the reason we wanted to tackle that is because with the onset of like all this like racism and anti-Asian sentiment, we wanted to be able to have like a historical perspective. You know, so when people look at like Asian crimes, they think, oh, it's, you know, such a new phenomenon. But when you look back at 170 years of what we've been through, I think you'll see that, you know, it's always been there. So the way to eradicate it and to learn about it is to know our history.
Yeah. And it's also the present as well. Like, I mean, you guys were in the middle of making this album in the midst of all kinds of things that were happening during COVID-19, including the Atlanta spa shootings. And so we know that change comes in many different forms, and power comes in many different forms, but having a voice, having representation, particularly in the arts, is part of shifting the environment in which we're in. So as you were working on this album, you also collaborated with a number of folks, actors, other performers, and that sort of thing. Well, why was it important for you to include all these different features and guests on Face Value?
Well, I feel like when you tackle something as vast as like Asian American history in our community, me alone or Jason alone can't be the only voice. So we wanted to bring in like a lot of people from different backgrounds, like whether that's ethnic or, you know, career-wise. So we had people like Ronnie Chang, Dante Bosco, Asia Raphael, Ruby Ibarra, B. Vang, you know, people from all different walks of life and you know, in the entertainment industry to kind of, you know, lend their talents and their voices, you know, because I think at this time it's really important for us to all have that kind of collective voice together, even though we share different thoughts and different, you know, like perspectives. But as far as like where we stand in terms of like, you know, our own safety and awareness, I think we all stand in the same position, you know.
Absolutely. And it's fascinating. You actually created this album in unity, in the spirit of unity, with all these different performers, organizations. Many folks actually had their hand in putting this project together because so many of us believed in it. And at the same time, it's also interesting that it was done remotely. Like in the midst of the pandemic, a lot of folks just dialing in from wherever they were. And so it's certainly interesting to see how we can continue to move the needle in a few critical areas when there's that thoughtfulness, when there's that intention to organize. And so I'm kind of wondering, you released the album. It was one of the top playlisted albums during Asian American History Month when it was released. It got a bunch of love and features from different magazines and other folks as well. What's next? I know that it isn't just about releasing the songs and calling it like over and done. You actually want to take this and elevate it in many other ways and bring this experience into a kind of a variety of formats. So what are you hoping to do with Face Value next?
Yeah, well, I think hopefully we'll be able to kind of include it in like educational modules, if we are able to kind of go into like curriculums and help propel like Asian American studies to be in schools, like not only on a college level, but on a middle and high school level. Like if we're able to kind of contribute to that, I think that would be like the ultimate goal for this album, and to be able to kind of spread that awareness and, not make it so limited for just people that listen to like say hip hop or R&B or whatever, but to be a universal thing.
Yeah, it's really awesome that you're taking this art form and making it much bigger. Like it's not just like listening to a bunch of rap songs, which they're great on their own as it is. It definitely holds up as a form of art, but you're also using it as a way to change the culture as well. So as an Asian American, as somebody who grew up in the States, like what does it mean to you, this idea of having representation? Like this evening we're talking about calling for representation at all levels of government, particularly here in Ohio. At the governor's level, we want a seat at the table so that elected officials can actually hear about what's happening and develop culturally competent policies that actually make sense for our communities. What does it mean to you as an artist, as someone who lives in the South, who kind of grew up in this environment? What is your hope?
Well, I feel like, I don't want to say it's everything, but it's a lot, because even when I was growing up, like, because there was such a lack of representation, like I kind of like idolized people outside of the community, and I also idolized people that just looked remotely Asian. Like for the longest time, I thought Joseph Gordon-Levitt was Asian, so I liked him on The Rock and the Sun. That's how little of us were in the media. I think like also beyond just like how it makes Asian Americans feel, like when you have representation, like say like as Asian Americans, like people humanize you. Like when you don't have that representation of like say like a strong Asian American male or woman, then it's easier for people to kind of like stereotype you and be into like different typecasts that they think is Asian American. So like for us to be able to have that visibility and that familiarity is really important for people to actually like appreciate what we have to say. And it's not just like, oh, they look pretty on screen. It's also like, let's value what they have to say, because we, like you said, we now have a seat at the table.
Well, we appreciate all of your efforts in bringing those stories to life and changing the culture through not only Face the Value, but you're also in solo projects as well. You're working on the screen, you're working on the stage, you're working many different aspects of the entertainment industry. So we are so appreciative of everything that you're doing. So for folks who are interested in learning more about Alan Z's work, check out Alan Z Music. He's got some incredible music, got a great website with all kinds of information. And also you can learn more about Face Value, the album, through Alan Z as well. So Alan, thank you so much for joining us tonight and sharing some of your music with us. And so I'd like to bring Elaine back up to the mic, so to speak, and she will be introducing and having a conversation with our next artist for this evening.
Thanks so much, Simon. I'm really excited to introduce our next artist. His name is Jordan Wong, and I met Jordan through an interesting way, I think. So Asia's Cleveland office is located inside of a space known as Asia Plaza. And at the corner where this Asia Plaza building or the main fixture of Asia Plaza is located, it has a electrical box that's on the corner where the building is. And I saw it so many times and I thought, gosh, why is there this like amazing artwork? Is this somebody's project or what is happening here. I've never seen something like that in the city of Cleveland, and even more so in Asiatown. But I inquired about, who made this beautiful art and made it in a public space for everyone to enjoy. And I asked around, and someone told me, well, that artist is Jordan Wong, and he's an Asian artist, and he interweaves his Asian culture into his art, even though that's not the sum total of it. But then I got to meet Jordan, and I went to see some more of his art, and then I learned, oh my gosh, this art is it's really, really so much more than meets the eye. So I'm very, very happy and excited to introduce Jordan Wong and have him share about his artwork and really what it means to be Asian. Welcome, Jordan.
Hi, Elaine. Good to see you. It's great to be here. All right. Well, I have some visuals since I am an artist. But first and foremost, Elaine, thank you so much for the opportunity to connect. And those tuning in, thank you for joining me. Again, my name is Jordan Wong, and I work for myself as a full-time artist under the name Wong Face. And it all started when I was a kid. I remember, I think my earliest memory of drawing was like when I was like 3 or 4 years old. And back then, I was in love with all sorts of things, comics, video games, Japanese anime and manga, anything that had these like fantastical story elements. It really just enthralled me whenever I was young. And I'm so honored that I get to share some of those things that I loved as a kid and transform them in my own ways as an artist to create large-scale installations for different public projects. Installations in Cleveland Public Square, Asiatown, as Elaine mentioned earlier. This is actually that electrical box that I worked with Midtown Cleveland to create this piece. I also have an installation over in Lakewood. Currently, my work is actually on view at the Akron Art Museum. I had the privilege to create some installations for their garden space. I'm actually the first artist to ever do like a whole series outdoors. So again, this is down in Akron. There are 4 installations with a 5th one that was actually recently put up. And if you ever have a chance, those that live in Cleveland, I would love for you to go down to Akron and check out the work. There's also works in their indoor gallery as well. So my career started actually in graphic design, and I have been a partner of Spaces, which is a local art organization with fantastic gallery and exhibition programming. They also offer funds and grants for artists, and I'm their graphic designer. So in exchange for design services, I have my studio in the back, and I've had this kind of relationship with them for, I want to say 4 or 5 years now. I'm also the president of AIGA Cleveland, which is a national organization. It's the Professional Association for Design. And this is all types of design: graphic design, web design, interior design, all forms, all disciplines. And I'm also, fun fact, a tango dancer. I've been dancing for about 6 years now, so just threw in a little fun fact there. last thing that I wanted to share, because I believe that this really connects with the work and kind of, the journey and defining and kind of crafting, what it is that I want to share through my art. So I grew up in an area where there were very few people that came from an Asian background. I graduated from a high school where there were 600 students, and there were 4 Asian American students, me being one of them. So, as a kid, I always kind of felt like the other. With people asking me questions like, "Yeah, where are you from? Where are you really from?" Those sorts of experiences. But I also, when growing up, found it hard to actually connect with sometimes my family, because I actually don't speak Chinese. I'm second generation, born here in America. So I understand very, very little Chinese. So even going to family dinners, the grocery store, out to restaurants, because of not speaking the language, there was kind of like a barrier there. And I felt kind of alone and existed in this really weird third space where I wasn't, this typical idea of what it meant to be American. But I, at the same time, wasn't, Chinese enough to be Chinese, strange, in this really weird way. And I grew up facing these challenges of trying to find belonging and like, where do I fit in? And it's really through, especially the work that I've been doing in the past 2 to 3 years with the public works and the large installations, as well as diving into some of the things in Chinese and Asian art that I loved as a kid and really inspired the work today. It has really allowed me to connect with others that have gone through similar experiences and are really struggled trying to find their sense of belonging. And it's this work and the exploration of my heritage has really allowed me to connect with people like Elaine, and the opportunity to share with you all. So that's pretty much what I do, kind of a little bit of my journey as an artist. And if those that are interested in exploring more of my work, please check out my website, wongface.com. I'm also on Instagram at wongface.
Thanks so much, Jordan. Your art, it's really nostalgic for me because there are so many familiar elements in your art that I remember from my youth. But there's also these parts of your Asian heritage, like the Chinese characters that I know you've intentionally injected into your artwork. Can you explain why it's important to you for your art to reflect that part of your Asian heritage? Even though you're you don't speak the language, but it's still something that we see in your art.
Yeah. I come from a background of graphic design, right? And graphic designers, we love icons. We love, letter forms and beautiful shapes that kind of turn into symbols and language. And, kanji and Chinese calligraphy are just incredible examples of that. So it's been fun and really exciting to explore these characters. And even though I can't read or write, still use them to share ideas in a different way, in a way that, of course, is true to my heritage. This also opens up the opportunity for me to, connect with, my family and ask them like, oh, what does this character mean? Or, sit down and they're so generous in helping me kind of figure out the right character, because in Chinese language, it's not just like there's one character for one word. There's like all these different meanings, right? So you have to kind of like talk about what you're trying to communicate a little bit more to really get the right character. So it's kind of been a way to not just connect to my heritage, but also my family, who's very much a part of that.
Yeah, and I love how some of those characters that are Chinese characters that are in your artwork, they have these like quadruple meanings in terms of making that art like move. Like there's like action words that you have consulted with others to incorporate into your work. So I really love that. But you're also this proponent for equity in the art world. Can you talk about any barriers that you faced as an artist, and how that intersected with the struggles that members of the Asian community have faced in terms of mainstream acceptance and belonging?
I'm actually really fortunate to have worked with incredible people in the past, and have been really lucky to receive the opportunities that I have. And even my family has been incredibly just encouraging in this work, which I know that's not the case for a lot of young artists, creative professionals, not even in the art world. It could be even graphic design, or being a poet or writer, any kind of like creative profession. I've actually talked to those looking to do that type of work, and they asked me like, oh, how did you convince your parents?
Particularly Asian parents.
Right. So, I'm very lucky that I've been supported along the way. But I hear these stories of people, other people that, do struggle with it, whether it's from family or lack of opportunities, or sometimes even cases of things being imposed on them that's not necessarily part of the work. Like I had a conversation with a mentee, and she's first generation Chinese American, and we had this conversation of like, is your art considered Chinese art? Is it considered Chinese American art? Or do you have to take on these titles and fit into these little boxes? So I think there is the challenge of tokenization, and people seeing the work that you do and just automatically assume certain things. And I think that's kind of a challenge, and that can really shape the opportunities or the different projects that you work on. But again, I'm really lucky to have open dialogue with those that I work with, and to kind of explain a little bit more about the work and why, of course, there's a homage to all of the Asian influences, but there's something more universal that I'm trying to share.
Yeah, to dovetail off of something that Alan Z said earlier during this event tonight, just kind of not having necessarily role models or examples in the spaces that artists might be working in. Do you feel a responsibility to be a role model for others in the Asian community who are exploring a career in art?
I wouldn't say responsibility. I think if it was a responsibility, I would kind of resent that. I would say opportunity for sure. Like it's a privilege to have your work so public, so visible, and for someone who comes from a similar background as you, that's maybe earlier in their journey, look at the work that you're doing and see the connection and it resonate with them and encourage them, like, oh, if that person's doing it and I kind of look like them, maybe I can do it too. So the word really is opportunity, and also another word that comes to mind is really gratitude. I'm thankful that that I get the privilege to kind of share my journey, the things that I know to help foster the next generation of Asian American artists. So yeah, responsibility not so much, opportunity definitely.
Yeah, I definitely not the best word choice, but I think that it's definitely showing like what's possible. Like when you see another person that looks like you and is doing something that you might not have imagined doing, it really makes it possible in your mind that you could do it. And so I think that you're just a shining example of those opportunities. So you did in your presentation, you just kind of touched upon your family's history and journey in this country. That you're a second generation Chinese American, and that journey of coming to this country. It's similar to that of other Asians who came to the United States. That idea that the initial experiences, learning new surroundings, overcoming obstacles. From your perspective, how can the general population be more welcoming to new arrivals in this country? Whether they are artists, laborers, students.
That's a big question. Those
are the only questions I know how to ask.
Yeah, right. At the end of the day, we're all people. We're all humans, we all have families, we all have dreams, we all have fears. I think the way to kind of encourage and foster attitudes of welcoming and maybe curiosity, which I think is beautiful, is to recognize that the other really isn't so other. That which is foreign is actually not very foreign at all. So any opportunities to see those that you would consider so different as the same, because again, we're all humans. I think that begins opportunities of empathy, of kindness, of compassion, again, curiosity, because everyone comes from such rich backgrounds and cultures, and there's experiences and stories to be shared. So I think just reminding each other that, we're all people. I think that's how we can get those things started and hopefully flourish.
Thank you so much, Jordan. Your words are really resonating with me, and I hope that they're resonating with our audience as well. Thank you, Jordan. And now we're going to share some additional stories from our community about why we need a commission on Asian affairs.
My name is Satya Peterson, and I'm an immigration lawyer and partner at the Voorhees Law Firm. I support both Senate Bill 87 and House Bill 224 because my children deserve to live in a more equitable state of Ohio. It makes my heart sink to hear of the children in our own community being blamed for the pandemic, being told by other kids that they don't want to play with them because they're Asian, and just the continuous treatment of many Asian Americans as perpetual foreigners, despite the fact that many of us are U.S. citizens. Our issues are unique to our community, and the AAPI Commission will work to address those issues. Creation of the commission through these bills will also ensure that this advisory board will continue to exist regardless of the gubernatorial administration. And these are just some of the reasons why I support these bills.
Hi, my name is Hiroaki Kawamura. I'm a faculty member at the University of Findlay in Findlay, Ohio. I would like to express my strong endorsement and support for the effort to establish the Commission on Asian Affairs at the state of Ohio. Last year on our campus, a group of students and my colleagues and myself got together and did an event or events to raise awareness on Asian American hate crime and hate incidents. The reason we decided to do it and the reason students wanted to do it was that students came to realize that they do not know enough. And this lack of knowledge and lack of empathy are some of the things our students were concerned of, and I am concerned of. So by establishing the Commission on Asian Affairs, I think the state of Ohio will become a better place to live and more welcoming for Asian Americans and others to come for a long time in the future. Therefore, I want to express my strong support and endorsement for the effort. And thank you for your consideration, and thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Radha Bodapati, and I'm the Community Impact Coordinator at Asia, a nonprofit organization that caters to the needs of Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders. There are about 22.4 million Asian Americans in the United States, and approximately 350,000 of this diaspora live in the state of Ohio. However, it is disheartening that Asian Americans still do not have an Office of Asian Affairs to address their challenges, including structural barriers and institutional barriers such as racism that limits their opportunities for employment and education, as well as their health care. I take this opportunity to encourage all of you to support passing of the House Bill 224, which will benefit the community in many ways. Thanks.
My name is Yung Chen Lu, Professor Emeritus in Mathematics Department at OSU. We have more than 50 Asian subgroups in the state of Ohio. Just for translation and the interpretation alone is one thing that we need help. We need the support from the government, and this is why the commission is so important for us to have to help the people in the Asian community here in Ohio.
Hello, my name is Zawin. I am a community outreach worker at Asian Services in Action, or ASIA for short. ASIA strives to empower and advocate for Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. It also seeks to provide communities access to culturally and linguistically appropriate information on health and social services. I urge you to vote yes on House Bill 224, which is to establish the Ohio Asian American and Pacific Islander Affairs Commissions. This bill will allow Asian Americans to further develop programs and procedures focusing on the special problems and needs of Asian Americans, especially in the field of education, employment, health, housing, and welfare. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Elaine Tsao, and I live and work in Northeast Ohio. I work at Asian Services in Action, better known as ASIA. ASIA serves the Asian community across Ohio and provides direct service to Asian immigrant and refugee community members living and working in Northeast Ohio. ASIA provides direct healthcare and social services to this community. The Asian community is very diverse, with many languages and cultures. The needs of this community are also complex and varied. The state of Ohio needs an Office of Asian Affairs to understand and support this community. Asians are the fastest growing community across the United States as well as in Ohio. The Asian community needs to know that Ohio values them. As Ohio's elected officials, you can show that support by authorizing a commission for an Office of Asian Affairs. So please, vote your support for a commission for an Office of Asian Affairs for the state of Ohio. Thank you.
It is critical to pass House Bill 224, as you heard from so many of our fellow Ohioans. This is an opportunity for us to get representation, to unlock important resources, to get data, which is critical in informing policies that can make any kind of effort by our government more equitable, to make sure that our children, our families have access to things, information in a way that makes sense to them in their language and that are culturally competent. So if you are interested in supporting this effort, please go to asiaohio.org/get involved. This is your opportunity to donate, to volunteer, to find out the latest on what's happening with House Bill 224 and how you can be a part of the effort in making sure that it gets passed. Everything from contacting your own elected officials to supporting other initiatives like this. Now, we're so proud to be introducing our next guest here, Serin Oh, a local resident of Ohio and an artist activist herself who grew up in the state. Serin is a pop artist who has just recently dropped a couple of hot new singles, and I'm hoping that she'll be sharing some of them with us tonight. So, Serin, thank you so much for joining us for AAPI Power.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for that epic intro, Simon.
And so, you know, we before we dive into some of your music, I just wanted to also mention that, you know, Serin also has been participating in some Slants Foundation events. Been kind of getting connected with other AAPI artists. There's a whole network of artists, activists, folks looking to elevate AAPI representation in the culture and to get connected with them. But as someone who is also in Ohio, I am especially happy to be supporting your efforts because, you know, I live here. I want us to recognize the folks that are here, homegrown, that are doing some amazing things in this state that deserves a lot more love and recognition. Anyway, enough of my blathering. Let's kick it off and hear some of your incredible music.
Amazing. Well, thank you, Simon, so much for having me here and to be able to perform here to support. Like Simon said, I grew up here in Ohio, so this definitely means a lot. So this first song is called Me, Myself, and I, and I wrote this to reflect on my time as I grew up and all these narratives that I had written to myself about, oh, like people don't like me because I look different from them, or people want maybe not the best things for me. But then I decided that I am indeed in charge of my own narrative. And this song is about that journey. Hope you enjoy. You show your teeth, what's in between, not what you need, but I wanna shine, girl. People like to find the things that they don't like, but I don't mind what they can find, so I'm gonna shine, girl. People wanna see me cry. People always want my time. People always want a lie. Took a while to realize, but now I know. not the old me, you cannot phase me. Purpose kinda changed me. No idea. I'ma be the real me, and you might think I'm crazy. You hear me now. I won't be defined, light up all the lies. Always has been me, myself, and I won't be defined, light up all the lies. I see you now. Took a while to find myself. Can be clear on who I am as I see the mirror. I'ma go and shine, girl. People judge me with their eyes. Step back, take a look inside. Voices all in my head. I am more than they say. No. This is not the old me, you cannot phase me. Purpose kinda changed me. No idea. I'ma be the real me, and you might think I'm crazy. You'll hear me now. I will be defined, light up all the lies. Always has been me, myself, and I won't be defined, light up all the lies. I see you now. Stop. So that was Me, Myself, and I by yours truly. It's definitely allergies are acting up for me right now. And so in the middle of the songs, my voice was getting a little scratchy. Now, this next little tune I actually wrote during my time in Spain, and it is called Other Woman. And once again, I hope you guys enjoy. But before we start, I'm just gonna clear my throat just a little bit. Okay. Once again, this song is called Other Woman. Didn't you tell me just last week you and your girl and there's 1 week? How come since then you don't mention her name but slide into my DMs instead? Didn't you tell me about them guys who do the dirty and hide their lies? How come since then you've been acting like one of them? Your body tells me more than your eyes can see. The depth of what's underneath is what really draws me in. Your body tells me more than your eyes can see. The depth of what's underneath is what really draws me in. But I won't be your other woman. You got a girl and I'm a lady. I won't be your other woman. No. I won't be your other woman. You got a girl and I'm a lady. I won't be your other woman. Don't you know I got a moral code? Well, I guess your colors showed what really goes on inside. Your body tells me more than your eyes can see. The depth of what's underneath is what really draws me in. I won't be your other woman. You got a girl and I'm a lady. I won't be your other woman. I won't be your other woman. You got a girl and I'm a lady. I won't be your other woman. Your other woman. That song was called Other Woman. And how's the volume happening over there? Is everything good? Can you guys hear me all right? Is the music all right?
Sound great.
Great. Thank you.
So thank you so much for sharing some songs with us. I wanted to kind of bring up in the first song, you had this line, you talk about how you won't be defined, but in kind of the bridge of that song, you also say, it took me a while to find myself. What does that mean to you? Are you talking about like your AAPI identity, your identity in the arts, or like your relationship with music?
Wow, Simon, yeah, that's a heavy hitter. Definitely in my AAPI identity. I think, once again, like growing up here, I am from Beaver Creek, Ohio, in Dayton, Ohio. I don't know if any of you guys are from around here, but growing up here, I didn't really see anyone that looked like me. And so I actually went under a different name. I went by the name Amelia. That was my American name. And for the longest time, I denied my Korean identity and just wanted to be a typical American, as I thought, like with the Americans that I saw around me. But then when I went to college and I started seeing more and more other Korean Americans and Asian Americans, I learned that I too am an American. And in that way, I started finding my identity as a Korean American. And then another layer was me as an artist and as a musician. For the longest time, I also, because there wasn't much representation in the American music industry, I thought, well, yes, I love music and I love the industry. So maybe I'll just go into the business side, like behind the scenes, because I don't see anyone that looks like me in front of the screens. And that line, it took a while to realize, but now I know that this is not the real me. This is not the old me, I mean. Um, that was me realizing that, hey, you know what? Like, I love music and I love songwriting, and I too can do this. And this also came from seeing other fellow Asian American communities, like in the Slants Foundation, right? Like, as I saw other people that look like me going into the arts, I was like, I can do this, and that's how I found my voice that way.
What a powerful message, and so timely as well. As we're talking about, AAPI Power and the power of representation, I think it's so important to, like you mentioned here, like being able to see yourself. And this is why it's so important for us and why we're advocating to have this kind of Commission of Asian Affairs. We need to see that APIs are being represented, that we have influence, that we have power at the state office. And so this is why we're really encouraging folks to support House Bill 224. And again, if you're interested in supporting those efforts, go to asiaohio.org/get involved. I mean, this is a really, really critical time. Serin, you went to Berklee College of Music, correct?
I did.
And when you were there, were you studying performance, or were you kind of dabbling more on the business side during that time period before you decided to kind of switch back over?
Yeah, definitely. It was like a full round. I went for performance, and then I went to music business, and then towards the end, I got more involved in performance, but graduated with business.
Yeah, well, it's always good to have that skill set as well. And you also, did you grow up singing like in your community as well? Like,
yeah, I mean, I grew up singing show choir for all those Ohio music people around here. I grew up in show choir music, but with Korean music, I mean, I was just listening to it, but I never really sung Korean songs.
Yeah, well, I was also in show choir as well. I played bass. I was like the backing band. But so I could certainly relate to that. And, as someone who also kind of was a bit like, I always wanted to be on the performance end. Like I dreamed of it growing up, but there's something really difficult when you don't have those social mirrors. We don't have those cues from society saying, like, hey, you can do this. Yeah. So I think your story definitely resonates with me, and I'm sure many, many other Asian Americans looking to find themselves. And hopefully it doesn't take them quite as long to find themselves either, as folks like you are continuing to do that work and showing that it is indeed possible, that it's powerful, and that folks can really find themselves through doing the work, or through that very through the art of expression as well. So how can folks find you? What kind of projects do you have coming up?
Yeah, well, I actually released my most recent single called Icarus. I didn't get to perform here tonight, but feel free to jump on over to Spotify or YouTube. Both of them will be linked on my Instagram, which is right over, I don't know which way it is, at Serin Oh Official. You can look up Serin Oh on all streaming platforms and you'll find it right over there. But I also have a little tiny project coming out at the end of the year. So I would urge you to come and follow this journey. And if I can add just one little note about voting, this is for all of us who, because I came here straight from Korea. So like I know voting might still be a bit of a timid thing in certain households because we didn't really see our parents maybe like voting as much or anything. And I just want to like urge everyone to go out there and vote for this so that we too can have commission for our community.
Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And yeah, folks, be sure to check out Serin's channels. She's got really incredible music, all kinds of really cool content. You got these pop and lyric videos. I'm always blown away by the stuff that you're creating. So like, it's really, really nice to see another Ohioan out there who's shaking things up, using your incredible voice to do that. So thank you, not only for the music that you do, but for the communities that you advocate for, because I'm a part of that community as well. So thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
So again, folks, if you are interested in getting involved in supporting artists and activists in your community, if you're interested in getting that kind of representation, go to asiaohio.org/get-involved, where you can learn more about how you can support our community in so many important ways, including get that all-important commission. This is the year to do it. We should no longer have to settle for what is good enough. We should not have to settle for what we just inherit as the situation. We need to be able to imagine a more equitable future, and that begins by having a seat at the table. So, asiaohio.org/get-involved. It's a great way to get started. Donate time, money, energy, sign up for their email list, whatever you have that you're able to give. Go ahead and be a part of that, because you want to be a part of this all incredible movement. Now, we also want to hear from other folks in the community who have been profoundly impacted by Asia Ohio's work as well. This is an organization that has continued to work throughout one of the most devastating pandemics and economic fallouts that our country has experienced in many years to come. They kept their doors open, continue to serve the community, because they knew that these services were needed more than ever. And so I, for one, just incredibly grateful for that an organization like this exists here in Ohio. And so let's hear from other folks who are a part of the community and their relationship with Asia Ohio as well.
My name is Susan Wong, the Chief Program Officer at Asian Services in Action. During the pandemic, it really hit us very, very hard. However, we keep our door open for everybody, whoever have a challenge and difficult. When we look back, during the pandemic, we provide very unique services, such as helping small business apply PPP or other government benefit support. Besides of that, we provide food delivery to the senior home, and also emergency food pantry, deliver medication to the senior home, as well as assist clients to apply PUA, which stands for Pandemic Unemployment Assistance. So think about that. We provide a lot of very unique services. If you see anything we can help, please come to 370 East Market Street or 3631 Perkins Avenue. Thank you.
For us particularly, because of the pandemic, the Asian population are targeted to be blamed for this pandemic. And that's how myself and a lot of community members or clients we serve identified with it. And then that, of course, caused a lot of stress, a lot of fear, unspoken or spoken. We try to do something. Everyone was trying to do something. So we were creating the healing circle is for us to give people a safe space to talk about their feelings. we don't know if we can change anything, but at least we give people a space to talk. And the healing circle started because of this, and it's ongoing, that we wanted to keep on giving people a space to talk about their feelings in the language they feel free to talk, in Chinese language.
This past year brought us challenges we could have never foreseen.
The mental health issues caused by pandemic isolation and anti-Asian racism have been a challenge to treat.
But we continue moving forward, giving support to our community, who in return keeps our city running.
We are providing emergency food, supplies, and other needed resources. Now more than ever, the community needs to feel supported.
When more tragedy struck, we provided healing support and legal aid.
It's imperative to stand in unity and fight against all criminal and inhumane acts that target a segment of its population.
And the work is not done.
We are continuing to provide COVID vaccines and testing for the community. There are still too many community members who are not yet vaccinated. We care about all of our community members, and we are here to listen and encourage you. If you have questions about the COVID vaccine, please call our International Community Health Center at the numbers listed below. We are also hosting healing circles for the Asian community to have a safe space and share about their concerns related to anti-Asian hate. The anti-Asian hate must stop, and until it does, we are here to support our community. We can help each other get through the pandemic together. If you'd like to support the work that Asia does, please go to Asia's website where you can make a donation, or you can sign up to volunteer. Thank you.
Elaine, it's been an evening of art, of community, of hearing folks from throughout the state who've been impacted by your work. And I know we have talked about the importance of representation tonight. We talked about the importance of House Bill 224, of voting, of seizing power. What is the one main takeaway that you hope folks walk away knowing and feeling tonight?
I mean, I hope that everyone who has heard the stories throughout the night, seen the examples, all the things that we're doing here in Ohio, that they feel like they matter and that their voice matters. I hope that if someone is not already registered to vote, that they get registered to vote. Whether they have had a change of address, whether they become a citizen. Any of those things, if they want to have a seat at the table, they need to exercise their right to vote. And that, I think, is the most important takeaway from tonight. We need representation. We need examples so that we know that things are possible. I was listening to the others talk about their journeys and how they decided that their identity, that they could be, an artist or a musician and those types of things. And I think back to my own decision to become a lawyer, and I didn't think that it was possible. I never, as a child growing up, I didn't know any Asian lawyers. And then when I grew up, I originally was in the sciences, like the dutiful Asian, and then I saw on television, of all places, an example of an Asian attorney, and I thought, oh, I guess it is possible. So really, seeing what's possible, makes it possible. And when we have representation at all levels of government, and when we exercise our right to vote, we can let the community know what our needs are. We can share what our challenges are, and hopefully address them.
Absolutely. I think something that I've been reflecting on these last couple of years is, a lot of times people ask me, like, what's the difference between arts and activism? Or what are those parallel things? And I started realizing that they're not all that different. With artists, we basically imagine the world for not what it is, but for what it can be, perhaps with a song or through a painting or through performance, such as a dance or a poem. Well, activists and those working behind the scenes and front, marching on the streets, advocating for policy, do this exact same thing. We don't just see what is happening around the world around us and reacting to that. We're proving that it is possible to do better. And I think one common thing we've heard from everyone who spoke tonight, whether it was the community voices or the performers, is that representation also means like seizing power at the table, that we need to actually step up and take the stage, take the microphone, so to speak, from time to time, that we just can't wait for our turn for someone to hand that mic to us. We actually have to give voice to our community's needs and the things that we're demanding for when it comes to justice, and particularly in this time. So I think that, one of the things that I've been so grateful for as I've been learning more about the work of Asia, Ohio this past year and a half or so, that when I first came to know of the organization, and when we started working together and last year's National Voter Registration Day, one of the things I've just really come to appreciate is that you represent not just like the stereotypical idea of who is an Asian, but the incredibly vast, diverse community, all these different languages and cultures. And through that work, it touches upon many other lives outside the AAPI community as well. Like when you pass policies, when you do that work, it impacts entire neighborhoods, entire zip codes of youth and families. So can you share a bit more about that work? Like, what is it that gives you hope, that continues to drive your enthusiasm to do this work when oftentimes our community isn't seen, or that we don't oftentimes get that credit for the impact that is being created through this effort?
Yeah, I mean, there are so many things that give me hope for the future. Definitely the children that are growing up now, they have so much more of a confidence in themselves, in their identity. I think that this past year and a half, it really was a moment when the collective Asian community of like young people, they felt like, wow, they're not alone. They're not alone in the experiences that they've had. And that it's been generational. I mean, even myself, growing up, I faced some of the same challenges that young people today are experiencing with, questioning features about myself that are that make me Asian. Things that none of this is new. None of the challenges that the community is facing are new. But what's different and what gives me hope is that the young people are not afraid to speak up about these things. They're willing to go on their public social media spaces and voice their concerns and voice their feelings in a way that I think that generations before might have been more quiet and not wanting to make waves. So I'm really hopeful about the youth and how they are advocating for themselves and also the community at the same time.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful when sometimes this next generation are showing those of us who kind of grew up in other conditions what's possible when we lift up our voices, when we demand for change. And so again, for folks who are interested in getting involved in this movement, please support the work of Asia Ohio by going to asiaohio.org/get involved. Elaine, what's coming up next? Like, between now and the end of the year, what are some of the things that you're working on that you want people to know about?
Well, we are continuing with all of our ongoing programming. You know, we never missed a beat despite the pandemic. We continued to provide after-school support, homework assistance for the newly arrived community in the local public schools. We have been, you know, COVID is not going away anytime soon. So our community health center is going to continue vaccinating, testing, and providing whatever care and treatment resources that the community needs in language. We are also very proud to support the humanitarian parole applications that we're doing with our Immigration and Legal Services Department to assist those individuals who have family members stuck in Afghanistan and want to be reunited with their family members. There have been so many people who came to the United States after having supported the U.S. military in a previous desert operation, and now their family members are caught in Afghanistan with a huge crisis with the transition of power over there, and we are working to bring those families back together here in the United States.
Well, Elaine, thank you so much for the work that you're doing. It is an honor and privilege to be a resident of the state with an organization that is doing powerful work, bringing families together, providing representation, looking out for the health and happiness of our communities. I mean, it's so pivotal. It's so pivotal. So for folks, again, once more, if you are interested in supporting this work, go to asiaohio.org/get involved. Sign up for their email list. Be a part of this because they are doing some incredible work, and you don't want to miss out on that. Elaine, thank you again. And folks, we have one last surprise for you. Serin has agreed graciously to perform one more song for us tonight. So we want to definitely go out on her new single. Serin, thank you again. And take it away.
Okie dokie. So thank you guys for this encore performance. This song is called Icarus, and it's my latest release. Hi there, hey. Doesn't this love taste a little bit strange? Plastic buffet. I think I'm missing something. Eat full, hungry, repeat. Going insane, it's always the same. And I can last another day. Vision set on something high out of sight. Where's my mind? 'Cause I think I need to find it. Just a little left at the right time. Never thought I'd see myself this blind. But if it's jumper giving up, I hope I'm not an Icarus. Right, I'm gonna go fly. Yeah, I might fall, but it's better to try. See me slipping and sliding, I'ma keep smiling. I found me when I lost my mind. I said, whoa, look at her go. Said that she couldn't, what the hell do they know? You might see sweat dripping down my eyes. I found me when I lost my mind. Hold up, wait. Carry on back, full of things that you say. Can't hold the weight. I think I might be crashing. Life best under the sea. It's never too late to drink a Kool-Aid, but I don't wanna live that way. Oh, okay. Vision set on something high out of sight. Where's my mind? 'Cause I'm feeling kinda sideways. Just a little left at the right time. Never thought I'd see myself this blind. But dude, if this Trumper giving up, I hope I'm not an Icarus. Right, I'm gonna go fly. Yeah, I might fall, but it's better to try. See me slipping and sliding, I'ma keep smiling. I found me when I lost my mind. I said, whoa, look at her go. Said that she couldn't, what the hell do they know? You might see sweat dripping down my eyes. I found me when I lost my mind. Thank you. That was Icarus on all streaming platforms.